Hello, church, and welcome to another online devotional as we seek to stay connected each day while we are apart from one another in body. So today's story comes from an unexpected, perhaps, place. It comes from the story of Joseph in Genesis 37 to 39 in your Bibles, particularly chapter 39. Joseph has already been favored by his father Jacob. He's got his coat of many colors, or as the musical depicts it, but it's really a long-sleeve coat, so that Joseph, favored among his father, among his 12 brothers, does not have to work. And so they hate him. He's their supervisor. He goes out to check on them and give bad report to their dad about the work they're doing. Maybe they're sloughing off, who knows? But they want to kill him. They hate him so much, such a braggart. So they beat him up, and then opportunity strikes, and they say, well, let's sell him instead of just leaving him for dead and tell our dad that he was mauled by animals. So they do, and Joseph ends up in Egypt. But he ends up landing kind of on his feet. He's working for Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's servants, and in his household, guy's a wealthy guy. It's like he runs up being the butler to the Wayne estate. You know, he's doing all right. And comfortable life until the boss's wife starts to put the moves on him, make advances. Joseph refuses her. So one day her hubby comes home, she concocts a story. This Hebrew servant of yours tried to rape me. Here's his coat in my hand as he came into the bedroom, tried to assault me. Well, hot-tempered, jealous husband puts Joseph away for a long time in prison. And we find Joseph in this situation, falsely accused, in confinement. Now, apples might not be oranges to COVID-19 virus, but through no fault of his own hand, he finds himself first thrown into a well and beaten by his brothers, then sold into slavery, then thrown into prison. He could say at that moment, why? Why, God? Why is all this happening to me? He could play the victim and say, my life stinks. Every time I think I'm getting ahead, I get tossed back down the rungs of the ladder, back to ground zero. I work so hard, and yet everything falls apart. God, why are you doing this to me? I mean, we could get up in the morning and say, oh, good God, it's morning. We could say, God, good morning. The attitude in which we face the problems we face makes all the difference in the world, especially in spirit. Joseph has this amazing attitude of faith where he says, as he's in prison, God, use me. The chief jailer then takes him and uses him to have care over all the prisoners and, by the way, the guards. And he ministers to them in prison. No matter who you are or where you find yourself on this life's journey, God can use you as a servant. So Joseph says, in the midst of prison, how can I still be a vessel for you, God? What an amazing thing. When others might give up, when others might despair and say, woe is me, the sky is falling. What am I going to do? Joseph says, hey, I'm going to get up this morning and I'm going to serve the living God. That has not changed. Nothing, no circumstances I face will change that. I remember there was a 101-year-old member of this church. Her name was Esther Adams. When I first met Esther, she was, I think, 95, 96 years old. And I had gone into town. I was walking to church, and I saw Esther getting into her car. I said, Esther, where are you going? She said, I'm going to go get all the old ladies and bring them to church today. She was 96, 95. She was going to get the old ladies and bring them to church. And I remember when she was facing some health problems at 100 years old, some serious health problems, she said, you know, I'm not afraid of what's coming next. And she shared with me this poem. You know, I can't change the circumstances that I find that are beyond my control, but I certainly can change the lens of the glasses through which I choose to look at them. And through my faith, I choose always to look at them as God is with me. And so whether hell on earth comes, I can face it because there's nothing that can affect or separate me from this love of God. So the last thing I want to share with you today is kind of Joseph's attitude. You know, this is something I do with the kids during children time. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. I don't know if you can get a good look at this. But at the top of this, it says God is, and it's Nowhere. So a lot of kids say, well, that says God is nowhere. Well, that's one way to read it. But it can also say God is now here. It's all a matter of our attitude and how we choose to face it. May the peace of Christ be with you as together we face a moment of crisis, but never alone.